Hey, Solid Fleet. So I hear that there's still a little bit of confusion over the whole UN climate change process. And don't feel bad about that, because to be honest, everyone's a little bit confused. I think that the whole reason that groups and countries send entire delegations here is because the whole thing is so big that no single person can understand it. Everyone basically focuses on a little part, and then they come together to try to make sense out of the whole thing. For example, Canada's official government delegation has over 60 people on it here in Mexico, and that's not even including the other Canadians that are outside of the government. I'm going to try to lay out the process as simply as I can. And if there's still things you don't understand, maybe you could include them in the questions you're going to send me. But really, don't feel bad if you're still confused, because I'll admit that I still am, and I've been working on this for over 5 years. So back in 1992, there was a really big important meeting called the Rio Earth Summit. They realized back then that climate change was a huge problem, and because it dealt with the entire world, no single country could deal with it alone. They realized that it was going to have to be a global effort to handle the issues. So everyone in Rio decided that they would create the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And the meetings that I'm at now in Mexico are the 16th annual meeting of the UN framework that was created back in 1992. So that means for the last 18 years they've been trying to work out an international deal to prevent climate change. And to be honest, they still haven't managed to do it yet. The first big breakthrough was back in 1996 in Kyoto, Japan. All the people attending the meetings there came up with the Kyoto Accord. This was meant to be the first global step towards solving climate change, but there were still big problems with it. First of all, the targets they decided to reach, and by targets I mean the amount of greenhouse gases that they would reduce in their home countries, were made as non-binding commitments. That's just basically a fancy way of saying that there was no rules about what would happen if they didn't do as they promised. Think about it like this. If I got caught speeding by the police, they'd give me a ticket, and at least for me that keeps me from really wanting to speed. In the case of the Kyoto Protocol, though, there are no fines. So it's like if I got caught speeding and the police officer that pulled me over just shook his finger at me and told me not to do it again. See the problem? If that's how traffic laws worked, would people really stop speeding? So let's look at how Canada's done with its targets over the years. According to the Kyoto Protocol, they were supposed to have reduced their emissions by 6% below what they were back in 1990 by now. Can you guess where we are? We're actually at 39% above where we were in 1990. We're not doing a very good job. So as you can see, the police officer shaking his finger at us wasn't enough to keep our governments and industries from continuing to pollute the atmosphere. So you might be asking yourself, why don't they just make rules that force people to do what they promised to do in the first place? And that's really exactly what people have been trying to do over the last decade. Unfortunately, all the countries taking part in these meetings, and there's almost 200 of them from all over the world, can't seem to agree. So it's a big room like this where the negotiations take place. There's a seat for each country that's a part of the meeting. In order for anything to be decided, every single person at one of those seats with a little nameplate in front of it has to agree. But there are countries like Saudi Arabia, Canada, and the US, just to name a few, that refuse to do anything if it means that they can't doing the things that make them lots of money but end up hurting the environment. So even though everyone knows that climate change is a huge problem and puts millions of people's lives in danger around the world, after 18 years of negotiation, we still haven't reached some kind of good arrangement that'll help us solve the problem. So that's where people attending these conferences from all over the world, youth and other volunteers included, come in. We're trying to pressure all of the country's governments to finally agree to some kind of deal that will help fix the problem of climate change. There are more and more of us doing it each year, too. Just last year in Copenhagen, there were over 100,000 people marching near the conference center from all over the world, calling on the world governments to finally make a good deal. But I think I've probably said enough at this point, though. I told you it was complicated. I'm sure that you still have questions you'd like to ask, so make sure you write them down, and some of the young people from Canada and myself in Mexico will hopefully be able to answer them for you when your teacher passes them along. Talk to you soon, Salt Fleet. Bye.